Today on Meet Your Body, we're starting our series on exercise and we're talking all things Pilates. Let's go. Hi, I'm Jessica Valant, a physical therapist and Pilates teacher, and I want to bring science-based knowledge, empathy, courage, support, love, and hopefully some fun to the journeys we have with our bodies. There is hope and strength in your body, and my goal is to help you find it. I am so excited for today's episode, and I actually feel like I probably say that every single time because it's true. Today we are talking about Pilates. I want to do a series on exercise. So this is our first episode in our exercise and movement series, and we're going to be talking about Pilates. So the things to come are episodes on using weights and resistance, mobility and stretching exercises, and cardio. So we have those coming up. And today we're going to start with Pilates. So I want to talk about what Pilates is. I want to talk about the benefits, some of the pros and cons, some of the myths that you might think are true about Pilates and aren't, and then how you can incorporate it into your own life. So first, I'll tell you my own history with Pilates. So I became a physical therapist in the year 2000. I got my first job, and within the first year, I had my boss come in to the physical therapy clinic I was working in and say, hey, we're bringing this thing called Pilates into all of our physical therapy clinics. We're going to start adding reformers, and who would like to be trained and get taught how to teach Pilates? And I raised my hand quickly, but it was not because I knew anything about Pilates. I knew very, very little. Again, looking back, this was the year 2000. This was just about the time that Madonna was doing Pilates, so it went into the mainstream media and people started asking about it. That was a big part of why the clinics I was working in starting to bring it into our clients. So I raised my hand because I just wanted another thing to be trained in. I was super excited they were paying for it. I thought the more tools in my toolbox, the better. I had been trained in a lot of different things, and I just thought this was one additional piece I could add. And I remember the very first moment I got onto a Pilates reformer. I remember it clear as day. And I started to do what we call footwork. They were leg presses laying on my back. Someone was teaching it to me, and my legs were quivering. And I played soccer my whole life. I was actually not a dancer or anything like that. I played soccer. And I thought, if nothing else, my legs were strong. And immediately, I noticed how weak my legs felt on the reformer. It was just such a different experience than I'd ever felt before. And then I put legs in my straps, and that was it. I was absolutely done for. I fell in love with it. I loved everything about it. I immersed myself in my training and how I could start to use it with my physical therapy patients, because that's who I was seeing at that time. So really for the next 3 years, Pilates became more and more a tool I was using with my physical therapy patients. And we're talking ACL reconstruction and back pain and total knee surgeries and rotator cuff surgeries and tendinitis and fibromyalgia, so many different conditions. And I found that this was such an amazing tool, both on the mat and on the reformer, that I could use for my clients. So that's how I was introduced to Pilates. Then, and you can look back and listen to episode 1 if you want to know the bigger picture and really the details of the story of my own health history. But when I was diagnosed with endometriosis after my very first surgery, that's when I really held on to Pilates as something that was going to change my own health. Up until that point, it was something that was great for injuries that I was using for clients. And I would use it for myself, but literally just for like legs. I would get on and just do legs, or I would just do arms. It was just kind of this added piece to my own workout. But I didn't see the true magic and the true possibility in Pilates until I got that diagnosis for myself and really had to dive in to making healthy and intentional movement a lifelong part of my routine to keep myself healthy. That's where Pilates really started for me and became something that is absolutely a non-negotiable in my own life. So I want to talk about what it is, the history of Pilates, some myths associated with it, and we're just going to dive into all the fun stuff about Pilates. So Pilates was actually developed by Joseph Pilates in the early 1900s. He was born in Germany. He was actually interned in a prison camp during World War I. He himself had a history of being a boxer, a gymnast, being a circus performer, so he always kind of believed in physical movement and the power of that. And then he was in this prison camp and he started to come up with his own way of moving and breathing, and he started to teach it to the fellow prisoners in this prison camp. That is where Pilates actually originated. And then in the 1920s, Joseph Pilates and his wife Clara came to the US and set up the first official Pilates studio in New York. And the rest is history. It grew from there, but that's actually where it was developed. So Joseph Pilates himself created a specific order of exercises to be done both on the mat for mat Pilates and on the equipment. So he did develop the reformer and the trapeze table, also known as the Cadillac, and other pieces of equipment. And he had a very specific order of exercises to be done on the mat for a Pilates class and also on the reformer for a Pilates reformer class. And that's where it started. But like any other form of exercise or training, he trained it to other people who then went on to train it to other people, and so on and so on. And now we're over 100 years later. And so you're going to find different types of Pilates around the world. And so I'm not here to tell you about all of the different types, but I do want you to be aware that there are certain types of Pilates and people are going to teach it differently, just like they teach anything differently. You have many different types of yoga. You have people who have different kind of philosophies on how they weight train. Pilates can be similar in that way. But you are going to find a few principles that are going to be common even amongst people who teach Pilates a little bit differently. So you're going to find principles such as breathing. That's always something that we talk about and come back to, is the power of breath. I don't always tell people exactly when to breathe. While that can be important, I personally don't like people to get too caught up in it. I feel like it can actually consume us a little too much and cause anxiety if we're not breathing in the right spot. But it's more the idea that breathing itself is an important exercise in and of itself. Your breath has power and how it moves your ribs, how it moves your torso, how it functions and facilitates other movements in your body. So you're always going to find breathing as a part of Pilates. You're going to find this idea of spinal articulation. Many exercises are going to involve trying to move the vertebrae one at a time, trying to move the vertebrae into certain places. We have a lot of flexion and extension and rotation. So that's going to be a common theme. Another common theme is something called disassociation. That means we're training you how to move one part of your body while the rest of your body stays still. That can be really beneficial when we're working on the pelvis and the torso and the core and all of those words that you hear in Pilates. So you're going to see those kind of things in common themes in Pilates, as well as the idea of control. So all of Pilates comes back to trying to find control of your body, control of your movements. And that is why many times it's categorized as a mind-body exercise. I don't personally love that categorization because, one, I think they only know how to put Pilates and yoga into that. And Pilates and yoga are not the same. They're not similar. People get them confused. And so a lot of times they're just categorized together as mind-body. But I also believe every exercise should and can be a mind-body exercise. Once you learn how to use your mind to purposefully and intentionally move your body, you should carry that philosophy forward into everything you do. If I didn't have mind-body control, there is no way I could go try to surf when I'm in Hawaii. There is no way I could try to make my way down a mountain when I'm attempting to snowboard. There's no way I could try a new weightlifting class if I didn't have that mind-body control. So yes, you're going to hear it described as a mind-body exercise. Don't let that confuse you or fool you. It is a very intentional and purposeful form of exercise that is meant to teach you how to control your body, how to use your muscles, and how to have a relationship and a connection with your body to help you do other things in life. So those are some of the common principles and really philosophies behind Pilates as a movement system. And while there are very traditional exercises that were developed by Joseph Pilates himself. Again, we are talking 100 years later, and exercises have changed and evolved. So you're going to see many different types of Pilates out there, and I am not here to say what's right or what is wrong, but I do want you to know that when you look for a Pilates class or Pilates training, I highly, highly recommend you find someone who has been through a comprehensive teacher training. Pilates has become so popular. People can get a weekend training online and call themselves a Pilates teacher. And I know that's the same with many fitness avenues, so we are not unique in that way. But I do recommend, if you do want to really learn Pilates and the benefits of it, find a teacher or a program and simply look at their bio and make sure that they've been through a respected teacher training program that's comprehensive so that they know how to teach you the full repertoire. And my final piece about finding someone to work with is to find someone you're comfortable with. That's the most important thing. Find someone, whether it's online or in person, who really sees you, who really understands how to teach beginners, who understands injuries and how to give you variations and modifications, who understands how to work with different bodies, who's willing to listen to your goals. You want someone who's going to be able to meet you where you are and give you different options when you want something more beginner or something more advanced. Someone should be able to give you those kind of options. The most important thing is that you feel comfortable. So that is what I want you to look at first and foremost, is that you find someone whenever you're working out who's going to really see you and meet you where you are and help you feel encouraged. Okay, so let's get into some of the benefits of Pilates. To me, one of the biggest benefits is that it truly is full body exercise and integration. And let me tell you what I mean by that. First thing, full body exercise is fairly self-explanatory. You are working your entire body in Pilates and you're doing it in almost every move. So we're not isolating really, this is a leg exercise, this is an arm exercise. Yes, you're going to look on YouTube from me and see Pilates for legs. You're going to find that because there are exercises that are definitely more leg focused. Let's say a side lying leg series. That's going to be more leg focused. The really cool thing is, though, when you're doing that and when I'm teaching you that, I'm also talking to you about where is your scapula and your shoulder blade. Let's make sure that your arm is working. Let's make sure that your ribs are pulled in. Let's make sure this and this. It is really a constant check-in with your entire body. And that is where the integration piece comes in. And as a physical therapist, I'm going to tell you that's probably one of my favorite things about using Pilates, is that I am always getting my client to work on so many little pieces that they don't even know they're working on when they do a certain Pilates exercise. They are adding their legs to their arms. We're getting core work without them even knowing it. I can add a ball and get inner thigh, and then we get balance involved. All of this stuff is happening because it is that full body exercise and integration. Another benefit of Pilates is it's very purposeful and intentional. And I touched on this when I talked about mind-body exercise. I truly think every exercise should be purposeful and intentional. But let me give you an example of when I lift weights, which I did this morning. And I lifted something just a little bit heavier than I usually do. I was able to be purposeful and intentional because of the Pilates I do, so I knew how to protect my body before I moved. I knew what to do with my breath. I knew how to kind of brace what needed to be braced. I knew how to protect myself. But then when I went to move, it was like I had to use every bit of power to get that weight up there. I did about 3 or 4 reps. Again, I felt like I was in control because I started out intentional, but once I got to moving, I just needed to power that thing up there. Pilates, on the other hand, is constant checking in of intention and purpose, which we tend not to get in life. Like I tell my clients, you shouldn't be able to think through your entire to-do list or your grocery list while you're doing your Pilates workout. I want you focusing on what your body is doing, why it's doing it, and I want you to be in control of it. And to me, that's why we say Pilates really does make you better at everything else you do. That leads me to my next benefit, which is that exact thing. Pilates will set you up to make you better at the things you want to do. And that might just be life. It might just be getting on and off the floor. It might be just getting the groceries out of the car. It might be running or cycling or CrossFit or lifting weights. Whatever it is, Pilates has the advantage and the ability to help you be safer and stronger in those other activities. So I would never tell anyone that Pilates is the only thing you should do, but I do see it as the foundation, and it can be that baseline or that base layer of everything else you do to help you stay safe and to help you have that connection to your body. Another benefit is the focus on spine and joint health. Again, as a physical therapist, it's probably one of my favorite pieces, especially the spine part. We are constantly, like I mentioned earlier, flexing and extending and side bending and rotating. And we're doing it, this is the key, we're doing it in a very active way. So when people ask one of the main differences between yoga and Pilates, which by the way, I love yoga and I do yoga. I love them both. To me, one of the main differences is Pilates is going to be very active in the mobility that you get, meaning you are working to get into those positions with the spine. You're using your muscles to do it, which is really helpful when you're trying to gain mobility. You want strength at the same time. Yoga tends to put people a little more into a passive stretch, meaning you get into a position, you're going to hold it longer to look for that muscle lengthening and that passive stretch. It's just one of the differences. And one thing I really love for spine health in Pilates is the active component. It's also very safe. We're going to keep you going into those new positions, but in a very safe and protected range of motion. You're not going into your full end range. So I love it for spine and joint health. And then the final piece, honestly, is very, very personal to me. Pilates will carry you through every season of life. I have used Pilates for every recovery of my surgeries. That's 3 major abdominal surgeries. I've used it through IVF and infertility. I have used it through 2 pregnancies and 2 postpartum periods. I have used it when I am so sad and in such a hard place. The tears are coming and all I can do is lay on my mat. I have used it when I am in pain and the test results haven't come back yet and all I can do is lay on my reformer with my legs in the straps. Pilates has served me in a way that no other movement has. When I can't do anything else, I can do some kind of Pilates and come back to my mat and know that I am safe and I have a movement modality that's going to support me and my body. So again, it is not the only thing I do by any means. I would never tell anyone that there's any one exercise that's the only thing you should do. But this is what I come back to. And it's what I hope to be doing for many, many, many years to come. So let's go into some myths of Pilates, because I think there are definitely some things out there that the media and magazines have told us about Pilates that just aren't true. So one thing is that it's for dancers, and that's not true at all. And I can tell you that because I was never a dancer. I mean, you guys, I was a soccer player, like I said. I was in musicals, but I was the one they only gave the singing parts to because I was such a bad dancer. So that's how much of not a dancer I am. So actually, Joseph Pilates didn't develop it for dancers either. He came to New York, some dancers found it, and they fell in love with it and what it could do for them. So it really spread in the dance community, which is why it became associated with dancers. But just know, it is not just for dancers by any means. You do not need to have any dance background whatsoever to get into Pilates. Another myth is that it's expensive, and I want to clarify this by saying I also have it listed as a barrier to entry because it can be expensive. It's something that I believe the Pilates industry needs to work on, is figuring out how we can get people into Pilates without spending that kind of money for equipment classes. But I also want to point out that it can be a myth simply because there are some amazing mat classes and tools out there that you can find for lower cost or simply no cost at all. You can go to YouTube and find some really good instructors and find some classes that you can do at home. You can go to your rec center. I have found some really great Pilates mat teachers at rec centers for low cost. So don't let that hold you back. I know it can be a barrier barrier to entry for sure when it comes to equipment classes and boutique studios. But also, if you want to get into Pilates, don't let expense hold you back, because there are many free options out there that I find to be really good. Another myth about Pilates is that it's all about the abs. And I hear that all the time. And again, when I started about 20 years ago, it felt like everybody just wanted that six-pack abs that they thought they could get from Pilates. And I know that marketing is still out there. And yes, Pilates does have quite a few abdominal focused exercises. And I will tell you, nothing has strengthened my abs like Pilates. Like, that is the truth, plain and simple. Abs will get worked in Pilates, and mine are strong because of the Pilates work I do. That being said, I don't want anyone to come to Pilates thinking that's what I want. I just want to get that six-pack. I'm going to get it no matter what, because Pilates is about so much more than that. There are many times, and if you've taken classes from me, either on YouTube or in Unlimited, you know I don't teach crunches a whole lot, because as a PT, I will tell you there's so many other amazing core exercises that are more functional and beneficial than doing a crunch. So I'm going to have you do 100 other things that are still going to work your abs, but in more of kind of a sneaky, nuanced way. So when you're going to take a Pilates class, just take that idea out of your mind that you're going to come away with that six-pack and doing only abs the whole time. Yes, our abs are important because they're a part of our anatomy, but they're not the most important thing that we do. So we're going to have this full body workout that you're going to get to help you be functional, help you stand taller, help your balance, help your bones, help all of that. And yes, like I said, you will tone and strengthen, but it's going to be a full body workout. And then a final myth I want to touch on is the idea that it's all stretching. All I can say is go take one of my classes on YouTube or in Unlimited, and you will know Pilates is not all stretching. We are working legs and glutes and hamstrings and arms, and we're working everything, and we're mobilizing. It's a great way to get both. And yes, there are going to be some classes that focus more on stretching, just like there are some instructors that are going to focus more on that. Then you're going to have some classes that actually are maybe the opposite way and feel too hard because they're too much strength and not enough stretching. I just encourage you not to give up if you take one class that doesn't necessarily speak to you or you don't love it. Find another instructor. Find another class. Try it again, because honestly, like every other form of exercise, all of us who teach are a little bit different. We're coming from a different place. But when you have that comprehensively trained teacher or a really well-rounded program, you should consistently feel that you are getting some stretching as well as a really good amount of strengthening. So I also want to cover some barriers to entry, because I think that it is a piece of any exercise program. There are barriers to entry, and I like to discuss them so that we can also break them down, because I want Pilates and movement to be accessible to everyone listening. So I want to talk about them and how to get through them a little bit and discuss what's unique to Pilates. So one thing that can be considered a barrier to entry is finding a supportive place to be a beginner. And we've discussed this, and this is something I will always champion, is beginners, and that people should feel welcome and safe in a space that they walk into. And that's whether you're a beginner or an advanced mover. You should always feel welcome and safe. And you should feel that the person teaching you has options for you, and that if they don't have an option for you, let's say you have a really unique situation and you don't feel that they have an option for you, that they can help you find somewhere that is going to be better off for you. So that can sometimes feel like a barrier to entry. I know in Pilates, I have heard the stories about how certain teachers and studios can make some people feel. So it is something you'll want to look for. I always hope that you find someone off the bat that will support you. And again, if you don't, look for something else. Another possible barrier to entry is the cost, and we did discuss this earlier, but I know with boutique studios especially, which I owned as well for a while, so I do know that as an owner, you do need to have a certain cost when you have those equipment classes, and I also know they can get pretty pricey, and it can be a barrier to entry. And unfortunately, that is simply the situation with equipment classes. So I encourage you, if you do specifically want equipment classes, to again, do a little bit of research, see what's available. When I was teaching and I owned my own studios, we had a free introductory class once a month that was available. There are places that will try to offer those kind of options to get you onto the equipment. That being said, if the equipment will be a barrier for you simply for cost, go for the mat option. So Pilates does have equipment and mat classes and private sessions. It is a big, unique piece to Pilates, that equipment. The equipment is fantastic. It's amazing. I will shout it from the mountaintops. I love the equipment and the Reformer and the Cadillac. That being said, you don't need it. I have built my entire online business through what you can do at home with minimal to no equipment. I absolutely love the Pilates mat work, and it is what I give to 99% of my clients. So you don't need the equipment whatsoever to experience the benefits of Pilates. So if the equipment is not accessible to you for any reason, please know that the mat work is amazing and beneficial. You will experience all the benefits of Pilates from doing the mat work. So don't let cost hold you back. Find that mat class that's going to be a little bit less expensive, or find the online programs, or even go to YouTube and find some free options just to get some experience and get exposure to Pilates. Another barrier to entry here is the marketing surrounding Pilates. I would change all the marketing available if I could. I understand very much that the image that we think of when we think of Pilates, we think of that very thin girl in a crop top, right? Showing off abs, probably with some money, going to a boutique studio. It has a marketing problem of being a very privileged exercise, something that people with privilege can do that the rest of society, especially marginalized groups, may not have access to. And that is a problem we do have in the Pilates industry. So please, as well, all I can do right now is ask you to not let that hold you back, and to know that 99%, again, of my clients who I work with are not that image. We are working on function. We are working on being able to stay independent in your life. We don't talk about the scale. We don't talk about aesthetics. We don't talk about what size clothes you fit into. And I know that is simply a really important value that we have as a company here at Jessica Valant Pilates. But there are a lot of fitness instructors and exercise places that also hold on to that value. So all I can say is, please don't let that hold you back. Again, find somewhere that matches your values. And honestly, if your values and your goal right now is simply for aesthetics using Pilates, that's okay. That is completely fine. Find a class that makes sense for you in that way as well. But just know that that is not what Pilates is about. Pilates should be available to anyone out there who simply wants to move their body and have more confidence in what they're able to do. And in my opinion, all of this comes back to finding a place that makes you feel safe and welcome, that you feel encouraged and not discouraged, that you feel lifted up and not defeated. And I know we all have our own journey with exercise and movement. I truly feel that marketing around the fitness industry tends to hold a lot of people back. It makes us feel that it is only available to certain kinds of people or people that look a certain way. And I am here to break that down. So wherever it is that makes you feel encouraged and motivated, those are the places that I want you to find. So let's talk about how to incorporate Pilates into your workout routine. So this is where we really get into what it looks like to include Pilates in your weekly workout. So I have a couple ways that I use Pilates when it comes to my own life and my own fitness routine. And in general, when I look at the categories, I incorporate Pilates throughout the week, lifting weights, so I consider that resistance training. I personally usually use dumbbells and weights for my resistance training, so I'm doing that a couple times a week. And then I do like one cardio day a week where I get my heart rate up for a sustained period of time. And then throughout the week, I'm incorporating some stretching and walking as well. So Pilates, when I look at a pure Pilates workout, let's say anywhere from 25 to 40 minutes of Pilates, I am doing that 1 to 2 times a week. But then, to be completely honest, I'm doing a little bit of Pilates almost every day. And sometimes that's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 10 minutes. The reason is I use Pilates a lot for management for myself, for either physical therapy on my own body or to manage my endometriosis or simply to help my back feel my best. And that's what I find most of the people I work with and in my unlimited community are doing as well. We're doing 1 or 2 Pilates workouts a week, and then many times doing a 5 or 10 minute routine almost every day just to help, again, either with injury prevention or with balance or posture or those kind of things. And what's great is Pilates can really be incorporated also in days that you're doing other workouts as well. So if you have that 5 to 10 minute routine, if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see so many 5 to 10 minute workouts for, again, either posture or for hip strength or those kind of things. And let's say it's a runner. So if you love to run, I would recommend doing maybe a Pilates hip strength workout almost every day to help you cross train with your running. So if you're using it once or twice a week, find that full body Pilates workout, either a beginner workout or an intermediate or even advanced if that's the level you're on. It can be mat or equipment, but you'd want to do that 1 to 2 times a week. And then use Pilates again as kind of that management place that you can really use it for stretching and for spine mobility. Once you start using it regularly, you're going to find you feel so much better that your body is going to crave doing it. You're going to find a 5 to 10 minute routine that you want to do almost every night before you go to bed, or every morning when you wake up. I have so many clients who use it that way, who, let's say, wake up feeling really stiff in the morning. So they have a 5 to 10 minute routine that they do every morning when they get out of bed that feels really safe, that's really mobile, that gets them moving and helps with energy. So it goes back to that idea that Pilates helps you in everything else that you do. So I use it that way for, again, that management to keep my body feeling as good as I can. And then for a pure kind of full body workout, I'm using it 1 to 2 times a week. Also, typically with Pilates, you don't need to worry about taking breaks in between days. So if you're lifting heavy weights, then you know you're not going to want to do that every single day because you need to give those muscle groups a break and give them time to recover and rest. With Pilates, because it's a little bit different in how we're using your muscles and because it's typically a full body workout, you could do it on back-to-back days without typically having an issue. And again, that's going to be a little bit different case by case. If you have a really advanced Pilates workout that you're doing that's very leg focused, I would say don't do that every day. Make sure you're switching it up so that you are varying, that you're getting arms and legs and abs and posture and all of those amazing things that you need. But as long as you're kind of switching it up or doing a full body workout, it typically is fine to do Pilates almost every day. You're just going to hear me say in our upcoming episodes when I talk about weights and those things that I highly recommend that everyone is lifting weights a couple times a week. So that's why I'm not always doing my big Pilates workouts every day, because I am making sure that I use other workouts to strengthen my body as well. But I'm going to be doing it a couple times a week for those full body workouts, and then almost every day for those smaller management, stretching, getting my spine moving routines. So where is the best place to start? Let's say you're either new to Pilates or you've tried it in the past and you haven't liked it, or you have kind of a chronic injury and you have a doctor who's recommending that you start Pilates. The best place is honestly deciding how you're going to be most consistent. So what is it going to look like in your lifestyle? Are you the kind of person that needs one-on-one accountability, that you like to go in and see a trainer or see a teacher? If that's the case, find a studio near your house. maybe get some recommendations from friends and start with a one-on-one. I know that cost is large, but I will say if you want to get the most out of equipment, classes, and sessions, a one-on-one session is extremely helpful. If one-on-one isn't in your budget, but you still want to do equipment, call around and ask about classes. Make sure, though, that you are starting with some kind of introductory class or beginner class that you're going to get the attention that you need and deserve so that you can get the most out of your session. You might even want to start by looking around to see if there's any physical therapists that do Pilates in your area. If you have an injury or you're worried about some specific things going on with your body, there are some great PTs who do Pilates, and that's a really nice option as well. If you're like most of the people that I work with, you may be working out at home right now. That is the best option for you. And in that case, you're going to be looking at mat Pilates. Again, there are so many resources online. I have some amazing colleagues doing some really great online things. I'm also going to link my own beginner workouts on YouTube below, as well as a 4-week beginner workout program that I have. It's a nice way to get introduced to Pilates and be able to do it at home with little to no equipment involved at all. And when I say little equipment, I mean you might need a pillow or you might need a resistance band, but most of the things that I do are no equipment needed whatsoever. So that gives you an idea of what Pilates is, where it came from, what the benefits are, and hopefully we busted through some of those myths to help you realize that it is something that may benefit you in some way. I truly want Pilates to be accessible to you in whatever season of life you are in, whatever issues you may be experiencing in your body. I want you to feel the power of movement itself, and I do feel, as a physical therapist, as a mover myself, and as someone with chronic issues, I feel that Pilates, it can be that gateway into other ways of moving. It can give you the confidence in your body that you're able to move, that you have the ability to do it, that you have some control over the body that you have. And then ultimately, Pilates absolutely can be a part of an amazing fitness program, an amazing fitness routine that you may have. It can be as gentle as you need it to be, or it can be as advanced and sweaty as you need it to be. It follows the continual spectrum on what you want out of a challenging workout or, again, a gentle workout. And that's the amazing thing about it. It truly will serve you in whatever season of life you are in. As always, thank you so much for being here today, and I will talk to you again soon. Thank you so much for joining me today on Meet Your Body. If you have a moment, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast, as it helps us tremendously. For more resources and workouts, you can visit my website, jessicavalantpilates.com, or find me on YouTube or Instagram at Jessica Valant Pilates.